I had always been a fan of horror stories, seeking out the darkest tales to quench my thirst for the macabre. But nothing could have prepared me for the chilling, true night drive horror story that would haunt my dreams, one I would live to tell. It was a moonless night, a perfect canvas for my insatiable hunger for fear. I had heard whispers of a notorious road that stretched endlessly through an ancient forest, a road where unspeakable horrors were said to manifest. It was known simply as the never-ending road, and it beckoned to me like a siren. With a tank full of gas, I set out on my quest for terror. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding as I entered the dark woods, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, clawing at the night sky. The winding road ahead was narrow, surrounded by thickets that seemed to close in on me with each passing mile. The stories I had heard about this place were grim. They spoke of ghostly apparitions that appeared in your rearview mirror, of voices that whispered your name from the shadows, and of a phantom hitchhiker who would disappear as soon as you picked them up. I was eager to experience it all, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. As I drove deeper into the forest, the road seemed to stretch on infinitely. The familiar landmarks from my maps and GPS vanished, leaving me disoriented and lost. Panic crept in as I realized I couldn't turn back. The road had disappeared behind me, shrouded in darkness. I was trapped in this nightmarish maze. I glanced at my rearview mirror and froze. There, in the dim glow of my taillights, was the unmistakable figure of a woman. She had long, disheveled hair that obscured her face, and her tattered white dress clung to her emaciated frame. She was drenched in a dark, viscous liquid that oozed from her body, staining the back seat of my car. My heart pounded in my chest as I swerved to a stop, my breath catching in my throat. What was she doing here in the middle of nowhere? I couldn't see her face, but her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. She reached out a trembling hand towards me, her fingers inching closer to my neck. Terror gripped me, and I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, leaving her behind in the dark. But no matter how fast I drove, she remained in the rearview mirror, her haunting visage a constant presence. I couldn't escape her, and the road showed no signs of ending. Desperation clawed at me, and I rolled down the windows, hoping to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the car. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it eerie whispers that seemed to come from all directions. They were voices of the damned, souls trapped in this nightmarish realm, and they beckoned me to join them. I resisted their call, but my resolve was crumbling. My mind was unraveling as I drove further into the abyss. I saw more apparitions in the mirror, faces twisted in agony, hands reaching out in despair. They were the victims of this cursed road, and I was their unwitting accomplice. Hours passed, or maybe it was days. Time lost all meaning in that accursed place. I was no longer alone in the car. The tortured spirits of the forest had become my constant companions. They whispered their stories of woe, their anguished cries echoing in my ears. And then, just when I thought I couldn't bear it any longer, the road ahead began to change. The forest parted, revealing a clearing bathed in an eerie, sickly green light. In the center of the clearing stood a towering ancient tree, its branches twisted and contorted like the gnarled fingers of a witch. I parked my car and stumbled out, drawn to the tree as if by some unseen force. It was there that I saw her again, the woman in the white dress. She was standing at the base of the tree, her face still hidden, but her presence filled me with dread. As I approached, the ground beneath me seemed to shift and writhe, and skeletal hands emerged from the earth, grasping at my ankles, pulling me down. I fought to break free, but it was futile. The spirits of the forest had claimed me as one of their own. The woman in the white dress finally turned to face me, and her face was a grotesque mask of anguish. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out, only a mournful wail that echoed through the clearing. And then, with a final, bone-chilling scream, the world around me dissolved into darkness. I awoke in a cold sweat, my heart still racing, my mind haunted by the horrors I had witnessed. It had all been a dream, a nightmare that felt so real, it was as if I had lived it. But the terror of that night drive still clung to me, a chilling reminder that some stories are better left untold, some roads better left untraveled. The never-ending road had taken me to the edge of madness, and I had barely escaped with my sanity intact. I've always been a night owl. There's something about the darkness that has always fascinated me. Maybe it's the way it cloaks the world in mystery, hiding secrets that are only revealed to those who dare to venture into the unknown. Or perhaps it's the quiet, the stillness that settles over everything when the world is asleep. Whatever it is, it led me to take late-night drives whenever I had the chance. One particularly chilly October night, I found myself restless. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows on the empty road ahead. I decided to take a drive, hoping the open road would calm my nerves. Little did I know that this night would become one of those chilling, true night drive horror stories that people tell around campfires to scare each other. I slipped into my car and started the engine. The comforting hum of the car seemed to chase away my unease as I merged onto the deserted highway. The only source of light was my headlights, painting the road in front of me with a narrow beam of visibility. I turned up the radio, hoping that music would distract me from the eerie silence of the night. As I drove deeper into the darkness, I began to notice strange things on the side of the road. Figures, shadowy and indistinct, seemed to dart in and out of view. At first, I dismissed them as my imagination playing tricks on me. But as the miles rolled on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. My heart quickened, and I told myself it was just paranoia. I continued to drive, trying to ignore the unease settling in the pit of my stomach. That's when I saw it. A woman standing on the side of the road. She wore a tattered white dress, her long, dark hair obscuring her face. Her presence sent a shiver down my spine. I slowed down, debating whether to offer her a ride, but something about her sent warning signals to my brain. I decided to keep driving, trying to put her out of my mind. However, as I glanced in my rearview mirror, I saw her in the distance, standing in the middle of the road, her hair flowing wildly in the wind. Panic clawed at me as I swerved to avoid hitting her. My heart pounded and I sped away, glancing back to make sure she wasn't following me. But when I looked again, she was gone, vanished into thin air. My nerves were shot, and I knew I needed to get off that desolate highway. I took the nearest exit, hoping to find a gas station or a rest stop where I could gather my thoughts. The road I turned onto was even darker, winding through a dense forest. The trees seemed to lean in menacingly, casting eerie shapes and shadows that danced in my headlights. As I continued down the road, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pursued. Every rustling leaf, every snapping twig sent my heart into overdrive. I tried to dismiss it as my imagination, but deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. Then, just up ahead, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A pair of red taillights glowed in the distance. Another car parked in the middle of the road. I approached cautiously, my mind racing with fear. As I got closer, I realized that the car was empty, its doors hanging open. I stopped my car a safe distance away and peered inside. The interior was in disarray, as if there had been a struggle. My mind raced with horrifying possibilities. Had someone been abducted? Was the person responsible still nearby? I fumbled for my phone, my hands trembling as I dialed 911. The dispatcher assured me that help was on the way and instructed me to stay in my car. I locked the doors, my eyes darting around the darkness outside. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that someone or something was lurking in the shadows. Minutes felt like hours as I waited for the police to arrive. Every sound, every rustle in the bushes sent me into a state of heightened anxiety. When the flashing lights of the police car finally appeared in the distance, I felt a rush of relief wash over me. The officers questioned me about what I had seen, and I told them everything: the woman on the side of the road, the abandoned car, the feeling of being pursued. They searched the area but found no trace of the mysterious woman or anyone else. As I drove away from that dark, winding road, I couldn't help but wonder what had happened that night. Had I narrowly escaped a sinister fate, or had my imagination played cruel tricks on me in the dead of night? One thing was certain. That night drive had become one of those chilling, true night drive horror stories that would haunt my dreams for years to come. I've always been a night owl, finding solace in the quiet darkness that envelops the world when everyone else is asleep. It was on one of these moonlit nights that I embarked on a journey that would leave me with chilling memories, nightmares, and an unshakable fear of the road. It was a warm summer evening when I decided to take a long drive, hoping to clear my mind and escape the monotony of my daily life. I hopped into my car, a beat-up old sedan that had seen better days, and hit the road. The radio played a soft melody, and the engine hummed in harmony as I cruised down the deserted highway. As I drove deeper into the night, my surroundings grew darker and more desolate. The only source of light was the occasional flicker of my headlights, revealing fleeting glimpses of the dense woods that lined the road. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of my own breathing and the rhythmic thud of the tires against the asphalt. I had been driving for what felt like hours when I noticed a figure up ahead. It appeared to be a hitchhiker, standing on the side of the road with their thumb outstretched. My instincts told me to keep driving, to ignore the stranger, and not risk picking up anyone in the middle of nowhere at this hour. But something about the figure's posture and the way they seemed to be shivering in the darkness tugged at my conscience. Against my better judgment, I pulled over and rolled down the window. The hitchhiker was a woman, her face hidden beneath a tangle of dark, unkempt hair. She wore a tattered dress that seemed out of place in the modern world. "Need a ride?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. She turned her head to look at me, and I caught a glimpse of her eyes, cold and lifeless like a pair of empty sockets. Her voice was a whisper, barely audible over the wind. "Yes, please," she said. As she climbed into the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Her presence was eerie, and the air inside the car seemed to grow colder with every passing second. I tried to make small talk, asking her where she was headed, but she remained silent, staring out the window into the void. I kept driving, my heart pounding in my chest as we continued down the lonely road. It felt like an eternity had passed when she finally spoke again. "Turn left," she whispered. I glanced at her, puzzled. There was no road to the left, only thick woods and darkness. "Are you sure?" I asked. She nodded, her eyes fixed on something in the distance that I couldn't see. Reluctantly, I veered left onto a narrow dirt path, the trees looming ominously overhead. The road grew rougher, and I could feel the car struggling to navigate the uneven terrain. As we ventured deeper into the woods, the sense of dread that had been building inside me reached a fever pitch. I had no idea where I was, and the GPS on my phone was of no use in this remote location. Then, I heard it. A low, guttural growl coming from somewhere in the darkness. Panic welled up inside me as I realized we were not alone. Something was out there, stalking us. The hitchhiker's eyes widened with fear, and she pointed ahead. "There, a cabin. We can hide there." I saw it too, a dilapidated cabin nestled among the trees. Without hesitation, I pulled up to the cabin and we both jumped out of the car, making a run for the shelter. The growling grew louder, and I could hear branches snapping and leaves rustling as whatever was following us closed in. We reached the cabin just in time, slamming the door shut and bolting it. The interior was pitch black, and the only source of light was a single flickering candle on a dusty table. The hitchhiker's face was ashen, and her trembling hands clung to mine. We waited in silence, listening to the eerie sounds outside. The growling had turned into a chorus of guttural voices, and it was clear that we were not dealing with anything human. Hours passed, and the night seemed endless. The air inside the cabin grew colder, and I could see my breath in the dim candlelight. I dared not speak, for fear of drawing the attention of whatever lurked outside. Just when I thought we couldn't endure the suspense any longer, the first light of dawn broke through the cabin's dusty windows. The growling and the voices faded away, retreating into the depths of the woods. With the morning light came a sense of relief and the realization that we had survived the night. I turned to the hitchhiker, intending to thank her for leading us to safety, but she was gone. There was no trace of her, as if she had never been there at all. I stumbled out of the cabin and found my way back to the car, my mind reeling from the night's horrors. I drove away from that cursed place, leaving behind the cabin and the mysterious hitchhiker. To this day, I can't explain what happened that night, or who or what the hitchhiker was. All I know is that I will never forget the chilling, true night drive horror story that unfolded in the darkness of those woods, a story that will haunt my dreams for the rest of my life.